So it's at zero depth. Next thing we want to do is basically figure out a way to limit the motion of your work here. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use a stop block at the end of my my gun here, and you can already see I pre-drilled some holes, some pilot holes. And what I'm going to do is take this piece of wood here. It's got 2 screws in it, and we want to mount it to the end of the gun here on the butt, and you want it so that this is facing up. Now remember, the top of the gun is going to be facing down. The right side of the gun is going to be up against the router fence, and the bottom of the gun is going to be facing up. Okay, so what you want to do is screw this into the butt of the gun so that it's facing up here. Okay, so basically this is going to serve as a stop, so we can limit the motion of the gun stock back and forth like this. Okay, so how do we limit that? Now we know where the center of our router bit is. Okay, and we know the limits of our cut here, as I've marked already on the bottom of the gun. So we also know that the router is a 1/2 inch in diameter. So the actual limit, or the actual extent of the cutting, will be half an inch, which is a quarter. So we're going to mark roughly a quarter of an inch off of our center mark here. Okay, and that's what we want lined up with our gun here on the bottom. So okay, so that line, which is a 1/4 inch offset from your center line, it's a 1/4 inch this way. You want that lined up with the forward end of your trigger mech. Okay. Now we want to be able to stop it exactly at that spot, and the way I do that is I use these stop blocks on the router, and they slide along the top here. Okay, I'll put them loosely in place here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this here, and that'll lock that down, and that'll stop the gun from moving any further in that direction, and likewise for the opposite direction. So what I want to do is set the correct distance between the two so that when I slide the gun back, the router, the end of the router bit stops exactly on that line. So the next step is to take a measurement of your trigger. Okay. And then the length of my trigger is about 2.75 long. Okay, 2.75. And you want to subtract the diameter of the router bit. So 2.75 minus half an inch is 2.25. So that's what we'll set this at. Oops. Lock that down. Okay, so that's one limit of travel. And remember I want to set that to 2.25. Okay, so I'm going to go to a 2.25 on my caliper here. Actually, I want to give it a little bit of excess. You want a little bit of wiggle room in there, so I'm going to go to 2.27, 20 thou more. Okay, lock that down, and then bring the other stop lock to that point there. Actually, I'm going to tighten this down a little bit before I do that. Okay. Okay. So, see that? It's a positive stop, back and forth. Now we want to be able to keep the gun blank up against the fence. Remember, you don't want this thing getting away from you, because if you come away from the fence, there goes your trigger pocket. It's pretty much ruined. So what you want to do is basically put a block here so that you can keep it taut up against the fence. So what I'm going to use is a pair of clamps and a piece of wood. And you want to be able to move this in here. You don't want it so tight that it's going to bind up on you. Okay, so put one clamp here. Okay, tighten that down. Make sure you can move the gun light back and forth. Okay, and it's nice and tight up against the fence there. Nice and snug, but not so snug that you can't move the damn thing. Okay, so one additional thing before we start cutting is we want to be able to hold this up so that you can prop it up as such. Now I'm going to use a wrench Okay, I'm going to use this piece of wood. So you want that that spacer, so to speak, or a piece of wood to be thinner than this guide piece here. So you can set it on top of that little piece of wood there, so that your bit doesn't hit the bottom whenever you're making any adjustments. Okay, so here's a sequence that we're going to use in terms of when we're actually routing the trigger pocket. So basically, you basically put this in the middle of the two stops, and you want to prop this up on top of your let's call this a standoff. Okay, you prop this on top of there, and then you want to raise your bit a 1/4 inch at a time, and then start your router. Once it's started, what you want to do is hold on to your gun block, take this away, and then just very slowly let the bit plunge into the stock. Okay, once it's down, feed it forward, back, forward, and back, and then set it in the middle again. Okay, and then reach down and stop your router. Once everything's stopped, prop it back up, raise your router another 1/4 inch, and then start it up again.